Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer!
Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it!
And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
Boxing Day miracles. Arsenal play well and win a match, and then in a bonus, Spurs decide to become Arsenal at the funniest time possible. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. So get this. We won a football match. We not only won it, we played pretty well. We got performances from bright young talents, and we did it in a big game. And then, if you were bored enough to watch that other shitty team in North London play against Wolves, they decided to ape the Arsenal. They've had 20 plus years to try to be us at our height, but no, they decided to be us at our low. And they took one shot in the last 70 minutes of their game against Wolves. One shot. Jose Mourinho football truly alive and well, and I think we can all agree they will be plummeting down the table as we will be rising, and it wouldn't surprise me if not only do we finish in the top four, win the Europa League, then probably win the Champions League next season, but also if Spurs wind up the ones in the relegation battle. So all of that truly on tap for a 2021 that will surely be the best year ever, 2020 having been, let's just say, disappointing. So a very merry Christmas and Boxing Day to you if you celebrated those sorts of things. And a bright and happy new year on the way. Here to discuss an exhilarating victory with me is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And Tim, you can find him on Twitter at Stubberta. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And Paul, you can find him on Twitter at Pause in My Pants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo!
Racking my brain to decide, Clive, if we should trash another transfer by doing a Julian Brandt scouting video. In case you're not up to this, we've been doing scouting videos on the Patreon, and they're fun and they're great, except in every instance, strongly linked players have subsequently no longer been linked to us. We did an Awar scouting video. We did a Szoboszlai scouting video. I think there probably will be a Julian Brandt scouting video in our future, but that only tells you that it is not a move that will be happening. Anyway, not a time to talk about transfers, but I will tell you we have some exciting new contributors and content lined up for January, both here and on the Patreon. So we hope you'll join us one or both of those places as you prefer. Up to you, either way. Let's dive in. And Tim, I think that... And I said this in the Patreon pod, but I'll say it again. I think it is easy when you're very, very frustrated to view everything through the lens of frustration. I'm not going to do that here. Instead, I'm just going to say that I am excited about the lineup he picked. And whether you think that he did it out of desperation or he did it because he didn't have Willian and Luiz available, or he didn't have this player or that player, Aubameyang's still coming back, whatever the reason is, it still results in the fact that we got a fun performance, thanks in large part to the two players that I think we'll be talking a lot about, and that is Smith Rowe and Martinelli. And the presence of a number 10 between the lines and the presence of Martinelli's energetic and direct running, I think, really were a big part of the story of this game. So, do you have an opinion on analyzing whether he was forced to make this change or whether it was a change he was planning to make, or do you think it's just more important that hopefully he will have seen what this did for the team and that it will become a template going forward? That was to you, Tim. Sorry, I apologize. If I've been breaking up, my internet is a cup and a string.
Sorry. I thought you said Paul. So I guess I don't really care that much at this stage. I think I care about what happens next. That's what I really care about. Because you can litigate any number of decisions over the years. Did Ashley Cole only get into the Arsenal team because of Silvinho's passport? Who really cares at this stage? Probably yes, but it is what it is. I would preface that, I'd caveat that by saying I do think Arteta's shown an awareness of what the issues are, which I think is the only thing that stopped me going all out. He must be sacked right now. Like, he's tried to put players into the zone 14 and things like that, and he's actually been trying things in order to help us to sustain pressure as well. Like, I don't think they've been very good things, to be honest, like putting Lacazette number 10 and just thumping a load of crosses in from the touchline. But he's at least shown an awareness of what the issues are. And I've been thinking about this today as well, about this performance and what we saw from the front four in particular. And I said, on the instant reaction pod, probably because I was a bit drunk, I didn't really kind of articulate it brilliantly when I said this wasn't a triumph for youth. This was a triumph for playing the good players. And I guess what I meant by that was that front four was balanced for the first time in a long, long time. So you had one wide player in Saka who's a bit dribbly, who likes to get on the ball and take players on. You had another wide player in Martinelli who likes going in behind. Balance right there. Two different types of winger doing two different types of thing. We had a number 9, not a number 9 I'm enormously enamored of most of the time, but a number 9 nonetheless. And what do you know, with someone like Martinelli running in behind and kind of filling that space, being that second forward, he looked much, much better. And then we had a number 10, or at least an attacking 8 in Smith Rowe, who was just able to, lean over towards that left-hand side. And particularly because Martinelli is not, he's not a player who you really want to, you don't want to give him possession out on the touchline. You want to play him in behind is what you want to do. And I think one of the reasons him and Tierney work so well together is because Tierney just pushes up the pitch and essentially pushes him out the way and says, don't worry, I've got the touchline sorted. Don't fucking worry about the touchline. Like, I'll do that bit. You go infield a bit. And it was just balanced. It just reminded me of like maybe a fairly old-fashioned Wenger front four, which was towards the end, one of the only things Wenger could do well consistently was have that balance in the front four. That balance in your wide players, the centre forward, and the number 10, putting it all together. And what you've got as well is you've got. If you're going to have like a player like Martinelli, who's a player you've kind of got to try and create for as much as he can create for himself, having that extra creative player in Smith Rowe, I'd say Saka is like a secondary creator. He's not Fabregas. He's not going to notch up 15, 20 assists a season, but he'll get a few. But he's one of the guys that gets the game going and maybe does the pre-assist, whereas Smith Rowe is, potentially like the final ball player, or at least I think that's what he'll become. And it just looked balanced for the first time. And in fairness to some of the guys we're quite down on, maybe Willian hasn't had that yet. As much as we've not been convinced by his performances, and I think he's had a lot of deserved criticism. Perhaps he hasn't had that balance yet. Perhaps if we see Willian on the right, Martinelli on the left, with Smith Rowe as a number 10, maybe we'll see a better performance from Willian. Maybe that will suit him more, having those kind of legs around him. And him being the anchor, he's certainly done that before for Chelsea and Brazil. So it just struck me as the first time I looked at the front four on paper and thought, yeah, that's got a nice little balance to it. But I think the next question, Elliot, that Arteta's going to have to face, it's not going to come up straight away because of their respective fitness issues, but how does he get Martinelli and Aubameyang playing well together? That, to me, is going to be the question of the second half of the season. Maybe even more than, how many games can Smith Rowe realistically play? Can we get another creator in? Because Martinelli's best games for Arsenal are always without Aubameyang. That's a situation Arteta's going to have to solve. And I think having two, fairly creative players like Saka and Smith Rowe, I think that's potentially a way of heading it off. If you've got two good, ball players, creators, I think you can have two players who perhaps don't really want the ball and want to run in behind. But like I say, I don't think that's going to come up in the next couple of games, because I think Martinelli and Aubameyang will share game time. But in the new year, that's going to be a big question that will come up. Yeah,
I mean, look, this is a challenge in some ways for Arteta now, because Martinelli looks like a game-changing kind of influence, but he's also a player coming back from a long-term injury who has to be managed. Smith Rowe looks like a guy who can occupy the kinds of spaces that we need to occupy. And I'll get your thoughts on that. Obviously, Paul did a video that you might have seen on Twitter highlighting Smith Rowe's influence, and he's quite proud of it. So I think we should definitely speak about that. In the Discord, begging for clout, begging for credit, which he received, and fairly so. But Smith Rowe, a player who's been plagued by injuries, soft tissue injuries, and not being able to stay fit. And so while it will be absolutely devastating to see some of the players we don't want back in the squad come back into the squad, they're going to have to. And it's Arteta's challenge now to figure out how to manage that. And I'm glad he has that problem to solve, because it's a good problem, because it means those players have forced themselves into the reckoning. And Clive, and by the way, we're not going to make this all about the young players exclusively, because I think two senior players, well, they're all senior players at this point, but Xhaka and Tierney definitely deserve credit, and we'll certainly speak about that. But Clive, I mean, some of the numbers are interesting to me. I mean, 30 zone 14 touches, most of them in the first 70 minutes. We had that centrality. We had some of the touches between the lines. In terms of deep touches, we had a lot of those. We got the ball into the kind of dangerous areas without just having to cross the ball. There were thoughtful ways of accessing the final third and accessing the penalty area that were a little more varied, and made us just a little more difficult, I think, for Chelsea to live with. 58 touches in the final third for the trio of Martinelli, Saka, and Smith Rowe, led by Saka with 24. So, I mean, is that for you the thing about this game that is most interesting for us going forward, is the variety of attacking approaches, the variety of attacking zones and patterns that we still had a left side bias, a dominant left side bias compared to the right side, but we accessed it a lot of times getting between the lines to Smith Rowe, getting central. And so I thought that was a really nice change of pace. Or do you think that maybe I'm overstating the extent to which this was different, and that it was just an improvement on a pattern we've seen previously?
Yeah, it's been once the emotions of this game subsided, which they still maybe haven't subsided, as he says.
Nor should they, by the way. It feels great to win and win a big game. We should remember that.
Yeah. We're all fans, and we enjoy it. We enjoy when we win. We haven't won since early November. This meant a lot. It really did make my Christmas completely. And I'm sure I'm not alone there, right? So I've never been one for thinking that a number 10 is the thing we're looking for. It's the golden ticket. I've never been one for that. I like to feel that creativity is about movement and collective movement and cohesive movement as a group of people. So I actually think, with that slant in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it's not just about Smith Rowe, but a lot of it was to do with Smith Rowe. And maybe I have to accept that player or players like that are important. I do think it's a three-man job. You see what I mean? And it's about having that movement and not just a one-man job. So for me, it was a victory for the fundamentals of the game, the basics and the fundamentals, and just simple things I've seen. Fullbacks on the outside, not on the inside, right? Just seeing Saka on the inside and Martinelli on the inside, which meant they could be more central. Simple tweak, much more consistent position from Bellerin, much more consistent position from Tierney, great timing of arrival. The fundamentals of the game, we're going to run more than you, Werner and Pulisic. You better run with us. And we're going to not just go when we've got insecure possession, but we're going to go when we've got secure possession. And that means we're a danger. And you're going to get killed for not tracking us, which is what happened. Just watching the security of Saka when the ball goes into him compared to Pepe when he's not been so secure. Did nothing special, just looked after it. Kept it moving. Smith Rowe. You often think that the best ability in football is to be available, but his availability on the pitch was just amazing. And he was just available for everybody, whether you're on the outsides, whether you're on the insides. I just thought the fundamentals of football that they showed, just being available for your teammate, supporting your teammate, I just thought it was wonderful. But the most important thing, we've seen this before. Tim spoke about balance there. We've had balance before. We've had Pepe, a dribbler on one side, and Aubameyang on the other side. Someone runs in behind. But it's not just the balance. It's the courage to play and initiate your game and impose your game on your position. And that's what we've lacked. We've lacked courage. And these guys just said, we're playing. We're coming for you. We don't care. And we're showing courage. And suddenly the balance shows up. And suddenly people, someone I've criticised in Bellerin, he trusts his man on the ball. And you think, okay, that's a better partnership, that is. That's a better partnership than Bellerin and Pepe. But Bellerin's being caught in situations. Now he trusts his man. He looks better. So I go, he's cause and effect. He looks better. He trusts him. And so little things like that I thought were really, really influential. And because you've got that sort of trust and cohesion and collective play and movement and bravery, I think everyone starts to jump on that, and I think everyone starts to look better because of it. We can trust each other, so we're more available. So passes look better, holding looks better, Marie looks better. Everything looks better when players are moving to receive it. And we spoke on the podcast recently about players that are moving to not receive it. You know what I mean? It's just very, very simple details. There was one bit in the game, I don't know if you guys caught it on camera, and then he had a chance to play the ball forward. He didn't play the ball forward. I think he got fouls in the end. And Lacazette went up to him and he pointed forward and like rollocked him. I thought, yeah, they know what's going on here. They're not stupid. They know they've been playing square and back. They want to play forward. They want to see things going in the right direction. And I just thought it was a real win for just football fundamentals, playing the ball forward to your teammate as quickly and as early and as fast as possible and getting around him to support him. There's one last little thing about number 10s. When one of my mates has got a kid who was at Luton Town, and he used to be the number 10, and they used to put a GPS on him, and he used to like hate it. I could be number 10. And the reason why, when they always expected number 10 to do the most running. And I think a lot of our minds, the number 10 just stands between the lines. But actually, the number 10 is the one that's got to get out to both sides, got to support the centre midfielders, got to go beyond the centre forward. And they expected him to have the highest kilometres ran. That's exactly what Smith Rowe had in the first half. He had the most kilometres ran on that pitch. Back to the fundamentals, outrunning the teammates. I think Arsenal ran 4K more than Chelsea. So outrun them completely. I think it's a massive win for the basics of football. And sometimes us guys included can get a bit up our own backsides about analysis. And I feel the game is really simple. Work, run, impose yourself, show your talent, but earn the right to play. And that's exactly what we did.
I agree with everything you said there, except I think of the three you said, work, run, show your talent. I think there's often an overemphasis on work and run and not enough appreciation that the talent part is the part that none of the work and run part works without. Working and running, bad players.
What I meant there, you have to earn the right. Earn the right to show your talent.
This isn't a repudiation of what you're saying, Clive. I was sort of taking another direction, which is just to say that, like I like what Tim said. The better players were on the pitch. This isn't just about youth or harder working or being on the boat or having the right culture. Smith Rowe is better as a 10 than Lacazette. Martinelli is better than Willian. Saka is better than Pepe. Like, these are the better players. And you could even argue that Aubameyang right now, on current form and the way he's playing, may not work, although maybe he could play the role Lacazette had in this team. I was amplifying what you're saying, Clive, which is that, like, you have to earn the right to play. I totally agree. But I think that we sometimes think that you can reduce the failures down to players that aren't working or trying. Like, at the end of the day, it fits a nice narrative to say Willian's walking and he doesn't care and he's not working hard enough. I also don't think Willian is good anymore, right? Like, it fits a narrative to say that Pepe's not working or trying. I think he is. I think this is a player who is scuffling, you know, in terms of what he's actually doing on the pitch. And so, you know, I honestly think, Clive, that everything you said is exactly right, but we should make sure that when we include the working and the running, that third piece of what you said, the show your talent, that's a piece of it. And these players, we shouldn't just call them nice young players. Saka, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, they are talented players. And that is why they excel. Paul, I want to let you have the Smith Rowe section, or not exclusively to yourself, but largely because of your desire to be validated for the video you posted, but also the fact that you've looked closely at him, so you are in a position to explain his performance. It's funny, right? Because this is where I think Clive's point also makes a lot of sense too, which is that you don't have to have the best game ever to make a big difference if you add qualities and dynamics that have been missing. He was between the lines all game. He was in space all game. He was available all game, or at least for large chunks of it that I saw. And granted, I'm influenced by your video, which showed off a lot of that. But, like, do you think this was a 10 out of 10 Smith Rowe game, or a game where Smith Rowe's skill set and intelligence provided us something that no other player has quite as effectively provided us? Now, to be fair, I don't want to say we've never had it. I mean, I think there have been some games where we've had a bit of it, but he just seems a very natural fit to occupy those areas. I mean, is that what made the performance special? Was it an outrageously good performance or a fine performance from a player doing the things we haven't done enough of?
You're a bit destructible. Your name's Emile Smith Rowe.
Oh boy.
That's you know when you're doing charades and you try and mime the whole movie? That was me miming the whole video. Look,
I don't even know what video it was, so that's a good start.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Not many. It's an underground video because I don't want to get taken down on the Twitters. But anyway, you can find it if you go and look at my timeline.
Yeah.
To the Sound of Gold by
Yes.
He's actually an Arsenal supporter, Martin Camp.
Really? Okay.
So so I don't think he'll be the one who gets me for my rights violations. It'll be those bastards at Sky.
Can I just say, Paul, I know the drummer from Spandau Ballet very well. He's an Arsenal season ticket holder, and I go to Arsenal with his daughter. So you might have to bribe me to keep them off your back.
I don't know if "True" is a song that really fits a football comp, but we should try it. Yeah,
I thought about it. This works really well, though, I got to say. In the Instant Reaction podcast I said about Smith Rowe, I thought I had a real insight here that this was only like a 6 out of 10 performance from Smith Rowe. It seemed like everybody came to that conclusion too. And I feel that does him a bit wrong because he's actually very, very good in this. He doesn't have a finishing moment, right? Okay, he lays the ball off to Saka, but he's really fucking good. He has the Ramseys about him, and what I mean by I don't know if he'll ever be as good as Ramsey. Probably not. Not many would. But he's always moving into those pockets, give and goes. He's so quick. And Martinelli, holy fuck! You just forget how fast they are. There's the clip we'll have seen of Martinelli taking off. There's no finer sight than Martinelli taking off after a fullback who knocks it then back to his goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper's got loads of time, or so he thinks. And Martinelli gets faster and faster and faster, and we win that ball back. They push it out to the other side. Martinelli's the trigger. Smith Rowe's in on the press. Saka's there. And as we talked about a little earlier, it just brings every other fucker to life with that kind of movement. Smith Rowe, this isn't a one-off. I watched everything I could of Smith Rowe at Huddersfield. Like some players, you just enjoy watching everything they do, and he's one of these guys. And he's just a give and go, run ahead. He moves so fast. When players run that fast, him and Martinelli, they put so much pressure on the opposition, and like they'll be on both sides of the pitch. They'll be all over you. It's kind of like having 12 guys out there. And I think that energy in the first half really knocked Chelsea for 6. We won all the second balls. And every other player responded to it. I mean, I saw Xhaka I haven't seen for a long time. I mean, I end up defending him on a regular basis. And you see a game like this and you're like, well, maybe I should have gone in stronger on my defenses of him. I mean, he lights it up in the first half. It reminded me of that time he said he was more of a 10 than the CM we see him as now. I don't see him as a 10. But man, when you got mobility around, you got people moving, making those runs. He's pointing at Tierney to get up the pitch in mid-flow, moving Martinelli around, spraying the ball around when we thought he'd forgotten how to pass. Well, apparently he hasn't. And like it just brings it all to life. But I think Smith, it's a toss-up. Was it Smith Rowe or Martinelli that was the difference here? Both, but if we're going into the market for an advanced midfielder, an attacking midfielder in January, you need 2, which is probably a good thing for Smith Rowe because I don't think we'll get 6 months out of him uninterrupted. Plus, it's a lot to ask of a youth, but a good attacking midfielder plus Smith Rowe, you could start building a style of play, and like just the runs, and where he runs to, like if you watch his patterns when he runs into the box, you just know he's got an eye for moving to the penalty spot. The number of times we got 4 players into the box, I guess you touched on it with where we got the touches and what zones we were playing in. But like if you watch the video just to see how many times we get 4 players into the box, our overlapping full backs. You know, I had a debate a few days ago about whether Bellerin was any good at crossing and blah, blah, blah. Well, like everything changes when you get 4 players into the box. Your crosses and your floated crosses, your crosses along the ground are going to look a lot better when you got 4 players you're trying to hit instead of just Lacazette surrounded by 2 centre backs and a couple of other cloggers. And everything starts to look good. Now, how do you get 4 players into the box plus 2 full backs getting forward? Well, you probably need players who can run the fucking socks off, like Tierney, Bellerin, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, and Saka. And like they'll get you up and down that pitch.
Yeah.
I'll add in one other line. There's the famous line about Jurgen Klopp who said, "Pressing, turnovers, transitions, basically a bunch of toothbrushes that already have the toothpaste on it."
Oh, for God's sake.
You know, we decided not to work the tube up the toothpaste every time.
All right, Clive, you want to add on Smith Rowe? Are you done?
We just went at them.
I mean, the toothpaste thing.
No, hang on. I've got another point.
No, I just wanted to say it's quite interesting watching Smith Rowe. It's quite educational, I've got to be honest with you. And there's an old Wayne Gretzky quote, right, saying, "I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it's been." And I think that's something that Smith Rowe brought to the game. He almost read the game, Bitsesk-like. Where's it going to be? Let me get myself over there and create some overloads on that side. Then, the team needs me to run beyond, so I'll run beyond. And I thought his intelligence was way beyond his body, actually. And the only thing that's stopping this kid is the body. And I watched Willett come on the pitch later on, someone who I like, who's got the body, but he hasn't got that brain. And it's quite apparent, even in this game, there's just different skill sets that they have. And I just thought that's what we've lacked, a little bit of intelligence, something that we used to take for granted in not so long ago.
Yeah, there's another really interesting quote, a Michael Scott quote, actually, from The Office. "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. Look it up. So, and by the way, do go watch the video that Paul made. It is really good. I think as many things as there are at Arsenal right now that are confusing, confounding, and somewhat upsetting, it felt so good to win this game. It felt so good to play. And look, I mean, we can maybe debate the quality of play. I mean, I thought we played well. It's still a game where we get a penalty, we get a free kick, and we get a cross that goes in. Although, of course, he meant it. But, and that's not to take away from it. I'm saying that in any situation, Arteta has been complaining lately that we've been a bit unlucky, and we've criticized him for that. But the funny thing is, this was a day where the luck went for us, and we earned that luck by playing a little better, because the penalty's a little bit soft. The free kick is, a 1 in 20, and the Saka goal is a 1 in 100, and you win 3-1, and they miss a penalty, and they have a header from Thiago Silva that is a point blank header that he misses. And this is the problem with football being a low scoring sport. But we've always said the variance thing is important, right? In that if you play well and you put the other team under pressure and you have deep possession and you take shots, you earn the right to win the luck. And we definitely did that here. And so if this is a game where you want to say we got a bit lucky and the other games we got a bit unlucky, I would say this was a game where we, to Clive's point about earning the right to play, we earned the right to get the lucky breaks. And we haven't earned that right in previous games because we haven't created enough dangerous situations. But I definitely think we should stop for a minute and celebrate beating an expensively assembled Chelsea team with 3 of our front 4 being 19, 20, and 19. For whatever is wrong at the club, that is special. That is a foundation. That is what we need. And we have committed a bit to some older players that maybe we wish we didn't. But this coming summer, we have a chance to clear out a lot of the sort of aging stuff in our closet and refresh our outfit, refresh our ensemble. And, I hope we do it the right way. I hope we lean into some younger pre-prime, early prime players because this foundation is exciting. We saw that today. And it's just incredible that a 19-year-old Martinelli can come back from a year out injured and have this kind of spark plug influence on a club. Tim, I'm not usually a fan of the sort of narrative, cliche-driven analysis, but, I'm a fan of other terrible analysis. But I cannot avoid the idea that, like, Martinelli has revived the club to some extent. Just the energy he brings to the pitch and the way he jumps off the screen. I mean, he really does have that generational talent kind of quality about him that you just want him on the pitch as much as possible, which is a danger that Arteta is going to have to navigate. But do you think it is fair to say that he seems all by himself, at least at some level, to be revitalizing a team that really looked dead and buried? Because I think his influence goes beyond his quality. I think his running, his aggressiveness, his energy on the pitch, his nonstop engine to press, it does seem a bit infectious. Or am I leaning into a narrative too much there?
No, I think you're absolutely right. What's the word Clive's been using a lot in recent weeks about being untainted, and that's Martinelli. And I know James and Andrew had a discussion about this on the Arscast about how young players don't have that fear because they haven't been hurt as many times. I mean, which I think is very well said and very true. But I mean, we should take into account that Smith Rowe and Martinelli have literally been hurt quite recently. And for me, it's a huge positive to see Martinelli playing like that off the back of a bad knee injury. Absolutely no sense of kind of caution or fear in his game, when usually most players, totally understandable, like most players take a few games to get into it, particularly when you play that kind of high energy style. But
and to your point, he had to be taken off the previous game at half time because he did exactly that. He chased down, I think his patron saint must be St. Jude. I mean, he goes after no hopers like a feckin' lunatic. Yeah, exactly, and that in itself creates doubt, and it is brilliant to see, and it has. Well, I say it's come at the right time. I mean, perhaps a month earlier would have been a bit nicer, but absolutely, and like I said earlier, I do still think in the back of my mind that there is, I can't escape this idea that all of his best performances come without Aubameyang, which isn't a criticism of Aubameyang. I just think they're fairly similar types of player. But and again, Paul's been talking about this in recent weeks. Like sometimes when you're a bit down on your luck, just fucking move a bit, and we haven't seen enough of that. And what it means is you just create that jeopardy, because when you've got a player like Martinelli, not every single pass has to land perfectly on the end of his toe. He'll he'll run after it, or he'll run onto lost causes. He'll run onto hopeful passes. If you're in a bit of trouble and you just want to whack a diagonal, he'll go after it, and he might make something. And that's a real comfort, I think, particularly when you look at the fairly low technical quality of our midfield. Just having that kind of that out ball, it's not quite having the lump it up to the big man type option, but it is, just whack it over there and he'll chase after it like a dog chasing a ball in the park. And it is just that injection of energy that we've really, really needed, because when you look in recent weeks, I mean, we've got quite an aging forward line in Willian. Willian has never been Willian's been a hard worker in his career. He's never been that kind of high pressing type of player. He's much more positionally disciplined. Lacazette has looked leggy. Aubameyang, he doesn't really get involved in games, so it's difficult, really. Whereas Martinelli's just got that kind of constant involvement. But I think you're right as well. I think when a player does what he does, it I think the player we saw it have the biggest influence and impact on was Tierney, because I think Tierney looked at it and thought, okay, he's pressing in the 18-yard area. That means I need to be 15, 20 yards further forward. I don't need to be hanging around back here. I need to be, halfway line and beyond. I need to get up there with him to support him. And it's exactly what we've needed. But I mean, for Martinelli to come back from an injury like that, and to your point, Elliot, about I guess a bit of desperation,
let's not forget, in the 4 games before he was injured, he was an unused sub 4 games in a row. Arteta couldn't find a way, sorry to keep going on about it, but to get him and Aubameyang into the team. So before he was injured, Martinelli wasn't even coming off the bench. So Arteta, and I'm not saying that means Arteta doubted his talent, but he couldn't find a way of getting him into the team. Now the situation is such that he can't find a way of not having him on the pitch. And that is enormous credit to a 19-year-old who, you know, this is almost, to me, as incredible as the fact that he came from Brazilian regional football and just came into the Premier League and just said, yeah, that's fine, I'm having this. And now he's had like the first real setback of his career, which has been gone on a steep upward trajectory. And, you know, he's had this one setback, this big knee injury. He's come back into a side that's really struggling, particularly in attack. And it just hasn't impacted him whatsoever, not in his body, not in, what's going on around him. He just keeps doing what he's doing. And that to me is, as you say, that is the sign of a remarkable generational talent, because it shows that this boy, he's got it in the head as well as in the feet. And I think if you read about his upbringing and things like that, you can see that he's been prepared for this for quite a long time, despite his young age. And yeah, I think we've got an absolute superstar, and I don't think he'll be at Arsenal for a hugely long time, but I'm kind of fine with that. I'm fine with the idea of super clubs wanting our players again, rather than wanting to dump their retirees on us.
Yeah, let's just hope that we have him long enough to benefit from some of his immense talent, and that when it is time for him to move on, instead of puffing out our chest and letting him run down his contract because we were too shy to sell him, we do what Liverpool did. You know, we cash in for 100 million and we rebuild our squad with it. That's one for later, but for right now, he certainly looks like a player who we will get a lot of benefit out of. And I do think, by the way, we should just mention Martinelli being sort of new-ish back and Smith Rowe getting his first Premier League start dominate the discussion and will probably overshadow our discussion of Saka, who I think at least we can say it tells you all you need to know about this 19-year-old, that he was so good in a dominant win that we probably won't talk about him much, because there are other players whose good performances are more interesting because his are sort of expected at this point. Clive, so I do want to talk about Tierney a bit, but maybe before we do that, we should get to the guy who arguably has a claim to man of the match, which I can't believe the words are coming out of my mouth, and they certainly taste like vinegar, but it's Granit Xhaka. I think the fact of the matter is, you can see the difference between flawed players who can thrive in certain environments and players who just aren't good enough, in my view. Mohamed El-Neni, in a good performance, still wasn't good, still had a mare. I just don't see a reason why that is a player that we want to persist with. Granit Xhaka, who's a player that drives us nuts, and I'm not saying suddenly he's great, he is a flawed player, a player with some really top-level skills and some really big flaws. And the irony is, in this game, we saw a bit of both. Early in the game, there was a period where we lost the ball and he had to run back towards his goal, and Pulisic went by him like he was stuck in mud, which we've seen. But most of the game, we got to see good Xhaka. I think the presence of the runners up the left-hand side really played into his strengths, really allowed him to just get the ball and hit it to the area because he knew where he had the runners, he knew where to distribute it. It set up really nicely for him, and credit where it's due. In a game where the setup fit him, we saw a good Granit Xhaka performance, a performance that deserves the credit that I am now giving him. And I'm not even going to say reluctantly, excitedly giving him. So, Clive, do you want to heap some praise on a player who I don't think is the future for us, but who on this day showed he can still deliver a positive performance if we put him in positions to thrive?
Yeah, I always look at the centre midfield area a lot, as you know, and when you look at all the passing maps afterwards, there's always one guy in the centre, and it's normally him. And, you know, it's even him when Partey's there, which is a debate for the future, maybe. And he is very central to us. And I never worry about when he gets run by Pulisic, because if they were in the 40-metre race, we know who'd win. So there are things that he can't do, and they're just he's never going to be able to do. He can't sprint like Pulisic. But he can pass the ball forward at a rate of knots, and he hasn't been doing that recently. he's been taking the safety option. Right? So I look at this game, I look at the whole rhythm to this game and how we played and how front-footed we were. And he was part of that massively. And, I think Paul just put in there about he's a very active presser. And I agree with that. He's an active presser when he feels front-footed, when he feels positive. When he drops away, he becomes a from the side tackler. And that's really risky because that looks clumsy, it looks oafish, and he's doing it in areas that can only hurt us. When we're playing in their half like we were, I don't know what our position was for this game, but particularly first half, I'd love to know what that looks like. But it felt a lot more forward to me. So now he's thinking forward. He's going to get things in front of him rather than think, I've got to protect these guys behind me and I'm going laterally across the area. So he looked better. We won the outsides in fullback areas. We were 2-on-1 out there on a number of times. And he just looked more positive. And we spoke on the instant reaction there, didn't we, about our intention to play. And, I watched this game and I did not feel my hand up. When that team was announced, I was absolutely petrified.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I was petrified.
Yeah.
I could not see this. I could not see this level of performance. I wasn't thinking these were the best players. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. I look at the Chelsea team, they had rumours of injury at fullback. Everyone's available. Their strongest team they can pick was available, and their bench must have cost 300 million, right? And all different scenarios covered on the bench. And I'm thinking, crikey, this is going to be bad. How are we going to do it? And we did it with courage and bravery and real front-footedness and aggressiveness. And Xhaka was part of that. And although we went a bit heavy on, we all were very upset about Burnley because we were desperate for a win. We're desperate for those 3 points we feel we're going to get. He did that. And because we're fans and because we're so sensitive and because we want to be made to feel special, we were all waiting for an apology. It didn't come. Then he gets picked. Some people are upset about that. I was too scared to be upset about that, actually. And I didn't get around to that part of my emotions. But then he goes and plays. And that is the best way to shut people up. Just play well. Just play to your potential. Do what you can do really well. You're a good passer. You've got leadership potential. You're quite aggressive in the challenge. Do those things. Bring those positive attributes to the game more often. And then when you foul someone, we won't really care. Because we know when you're going to fizz the ball out to Martinelli, you're going to fizz the ball into Lacazette, you're going to fizz the ball out to Saka. Just keep doing that, will you? And let them go. And just get out behind them. Don't go past them like Spurs. Look behind you. There's 5 men behind you. Don't do that. Be responsible. Have some responsibility about your game. And I thought he did. And he wasn't alone, by the way. He wasn't alone. There were many others that had a real discipline and responsibility for the game state. They didn't all charge off thinking we're in charge of this game. Let's just bowl forward. They were aware. They were looking over their shoulders. They were supporting their teammates, creating close connectivity. The sort of things we just haven't seen. And that's done by a real team bond and a team ethic. And yeah, he was part of that. So fair play to him.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to give Paul the chance to talk about him. I'm just not. I'm going to throw another question at Paul, and we're going to move on because he got his praise. He deserved it. He earned it. And I'm not letting Paul do a victory lap. I'm just not. Paul, this is how small a man I am. I'm not doing it. I'm instead going to say that I'd like you to amplify a little bit of what Tim said earlier about Tierney, because, it's interesting. I don't think he's been perfect this season. Nobody has been perfect this season. But I definitely think that this was a game where the players around him brought out the best in him. And there was one moment, it was for the Martinelli shot that was blocked a little bit. And then as a result, Mendy was able to save it pretty easily from the center of the box, top of the box. They're running together on the counterattack. Tierney has the ball at his feet, and he sort of just scans a little bit and knows Martinelli's making the run with him. Martinelli makes such an intelligent run because instead of really pushing forward and then catching up to the center backs who are retreating, he kind of drops in a little bit. He just slows it down a little bit so he's ahead of the midfield and in front of the central defenders. And Tierney just slides a really cultured ball maybe 5-6 yards to his right across to Martinelli in perfect stride to take the shot on. And, I think sometimes this season we've seen Martinelli just want to push, run, and get the cross in, but this wasn't a game where he did that as much. I thought he was much more thoughtful in his decision making. He obviously wins the penalty by roasting. Who is it? Is it James? Reece James on the touchline, and like, who knew that Tierney had that in him? This felt like just a lot more, technically speaking, a lot more advanced performance from Tierney, who at times this season I've thought was always very good. Always liked his running and his work and his awareness, but felt a little bit push, run, and cross. This performance was very well rounded from him, and I think easy to lose sight of it in light of the exciting young players. But do you want to maybe heap a little more praise on Tierney? Because I think he's been one of our players of the season, and this was one of his better games.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I think one of my frustration in recent times with him is he's fallen prey to whatever additional virus is going around at Arsenal in terms of running forward, then stopping, then passing back. I mean, he's a pretty big offender on that one in recent times. I think maybe for we call that
El Neni 20.
Yeah, El Neni 20. Hyphen 20. So
I was going to say 19, but that wouldn't have made any sense.
It wouldn't. But he's, I think, like, there's a reason so many players had been starting to do that. It was just like, who are you going to pass it to? Like, we didn't have, Aubameyang stopped running into that channel for whatever reason. What you might now call the Martinelli channel. I mean, you can hit a first time blind, round the corner ball over the top into that alley, and Martinelli's going to be running there already, even before the pass is on, even before the ball's hit. He's just running. So that just changed the whole mindset. And there are a couple of instructive moments in my little video, and one of them is Xhaka running forward with the ball.
Wait, you did a video? Hadn't heard about it.
I'm trying to keep it on the lowdown here.
Yeah, safe.
And like, what you see is he's pointing and running, and who he's pointing at is Tierney to get his arse up the pitch. And to me, that's all just part of the thinking that, hang on, guys, when we get the ball, we go. And, Tierney loved it. And I think Tierney and Bellerin as a pair, in a way, like stock rising wise, I think and have thought Tierney's been in and around this, but this really got to show off what he could do. And most of our attacking, again, strangely, is still going to be on the left-hand side, as it was in this game. Doesn't have to be. We were playing through the middle, we were playing up the right, but still pretty dominant playing up the left-hand side. Maybe it was a little bit Pablo Marie being the better passer and a left footer or whatever, and Xhaka being a left footer and not pushed into that left-back position, that kind of quirky thing that helped him early in Arteta's tenure to kind of protect him from being pressed. And we found out you don't need to protect him from being pressed by putting him in a quirky left-back position. You need to protect him by getting the opposition turned the other way and chasing our attackers. That creates all the space to make Xhaka look a little better. And then he can start feeding Tierney and Martinelli. Those guys really look good. But my big stock rising in terms of full backs was Bellerin, because he began to match it from the other side. And, where you could have persuaded me in recent times that Bellerin's kind of a bit of a wash in terms of his attacking versus his defending. You see, if we start playing like this on a more regular basis, then Bellerin's attacking attributes really start to pay off versus his challenges as a fullback, a little guy who's kind of always trying to compensate for the fact that one-on-one he's going to lose physical battles. But his attacking outweighed his defending by a long way in this game, kind of mirroring what Tierney was able to provide from the other side. I also loved the craft of getting the penalty. I think it was a penalty, and I think what some of the commentary about him leaving his leg behind misses is that it's Reece James putting his arm forward and leaning into Tierney that twists the body around, and sure, he put some extra mustard on it. And quite frankly, I don't give a fuck. We're here to win. When they change the rules so that it's fair, great. I think this was a penalty, but I'm all for our players having the craft that if you come at them when they've got ahead of you, they're going down. It's way ahead of what some other players do out there for he's got every right.
There's contact there. He's got every right to go down. And I mean, I think there are differences, right? There was the Ceballos dive in a recent game. I'm not sure. Was it a Europa League? No, was it City in the League Cup where I can't even remember. Maybe it was a league game.
I think it was before City.
Yes.
Yeah.
Southampton. There it is. Thank you. Yeah, where he's in the box. He can slot it across for, a tap-in goal, and instead he throws himself to the ground. And, that's sort of a more cowardly attempt here. I mean, here Tierney, rounds the defender. He's on the touchline. It's all very crowded out. And if he doesn't go down...
Reece James is leaning forward and into him. Fuck him.
Well, yeah, and he's not in a position to do anything at that point because either he goes down and wins the penalty or he tries to be super, super honest and James's little bit of contact takes him out of the play. So, I have a little more sympathy for that because it's one of those where, the ones where you say, oh, he's too honest there. I think that would have been too honest to stay up because if he doesn't go down, he's kind of bodied out by James' movement there and the chance goes begging, the move goes begging. So, he goes down and gets the penalty or he doesn't go down and... it's probably just enough of a foul to throw him off the play. So I don't know what I'm trying to say, so let's move on.
I'll add one other thing. His mentality through all these tough times has been excellent. And Leno too. I mean, they've both stepped up, stood up. When they've talked, when they've been interviewed, how they've carried themselves. Those guys have been absolute pros during these tough and dark times. So fair fucks to them.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Bellerin. I thought he was excellent in this game as someone who contributed to the attack. I mean, most of his passes, or not most of them, but a third of his passes were in the attacking third. He had a pass inside the penalty area. He created 2 chances from open play. He created a big chance. These are things that a lot of fullbacks don't do, and we don't have a lot of players in the team. Yeah,
Thrust.
Yeah, that's a thing. Thrust is a thing, and the more you thrust, the more eventually it will come. Did I? Oh
Thrust.
Boy, I can't. Did I just say the more you thrust, the more eventually it'll? Oh,
Manscaped.
No, we're not doing it. I refuse. Not on that note. Tim,
pull the Manscaped ripcord.
I need to pull some ripcord on this podcast very soon. But Paul, not Paul. Please no more Paul. Tim.
No, I'm ready.
No, I'm sure you are. One of the things that I think will be debated is the end game here, how we finished out this game. And I think this is a great example for me of an acceptable time to do what we did versus the Southampton game where I thought that we leaned into it far more than makes any human sense. This was a game where we had a 3-0 lead and we basically decided to start sitting a bit deeper. And yes, we got a bit battered in the last 20 minutes, but with a 3-goal lead. Now, we did our damnedest to potentially throw it away, but to be fair, it ended 3-1. It's not like it ever got that close. And, I think there will be some people who might be critical of that, but this is a game where I'm actually kind of okay with it. I think my one regret in a game that was full of so much promise is I keep waiting for the moment where I can point and say, aha, Pepe is arriving. He's getting it. This game had a lot of promise. We finished in more of a counterattacking mode, and I still just felt that the game passed Pepe by, that he didn't really contribute to that last 20 minutes. I mean, he comes on, I think, in the 71st minute, and it's the last 20 minutes statistically where we get battered. We're sitting deep and just trying to counter a bit, and he just isn't able to influence it. So, I mean, it's really 2 points wrapped into one. I mean, one, do you feel more okay about the end game here and the way we sort of sat on that lead towards the end? And do you have the same misgivings I do about Pepe, once again, just not grabbing an opportunity to flash something? I'm not saying he should have scored a hat trick and made it 6-1. I'm just saying he felt anonymous to me. So is that a fair appraisal of how the game wound down?
Yeah, sure. So I'll address the first one first about how we ended the game. But better Arsenal teams than this have ended like this against Chelsea. We beat them 3-0 at the Emirates a couple of seasons ago. Second half was very much like this, where we didn't really lift a finger attacking wise, and we managed the game. I remember a game, it was New Year's Day 2003. We played Chelsea at Highbury and we were 3-0 up, and then Chelsea scored in the 85th and I think the 88th minute, and that was shit yourself scary. And that was basically the Invincibles. So, we've been, and I think in 2010-11, did we beat them 3-1, 3-0 up. They got a goal back with 10 minutes to go, was slightly nervy. So, like, we have seen this happen before. I do think that is just broadly the pattern these games fall into. The last few minutes probably felt more nervous to us because we're scarred, frankly. If we were, I don't know, Liverpool fans sitting at home watching this, we probably would have thought, yeah, this is over. But, we have those scars. And to be fair, Chelsea have form. They came back from 3-0 down away at West Brom earlier in the season to force a 3-3. We know they have lots of attacking talent. So I can't believe they didn't bring Giroud on, given that they were chucking loads of crosses into the box. But, they have a below average coach, in my opinion. As for Pepe, yeah, I share that disappointment. Because we've kind of made every excuse for Pepe going now. And then, like you say, we're in a position where actually we are going to play his game. All right, he was on the left instead of the right, but still, against Reece James, I think a lot like Trent Alexander-Arnold, brilliant, young English fullback, but can be got at defensively. And I think we got at him defensively. And there were some doubts over his fitness coming into this game. I think there was the chance for Pepe to be more involved, to show for the ball a bit more, and to perhaps make those runs in behind. And he's actually not bad at holding the ball up as well, because his touch is so good. And I think you're right. I don't think he really offered any of that. I know there's that video doing the rounds on Twitter at the moment, where Tierney wants him to run in behind and he doesn't. He wants to come short and Tierney plays it in behind and he doesn't. And actually, I think those isolated moments can often just be taken well out of context. I've got no problem with when you're 3-0 up, coming short for the ball and wanting to keep it, quite frankly. And I didn't think the run behind the fullback was as on as Tierney maybe thought. But yeah, I think a little while ago I just accepted that this is who Pepe is, that he's just very inconsistent within games. He's a moments player, and that's who he is. I think we've all tried, myself included. I think we've all tried to kind of make some excuses for him or come up with reasons, but really, I think we're beyond that now a little bit. And I think for him, the emergence of Martinelli and Smith Rowe is as much a problem for him as it is for Willian, as well. And look, the other thing is Saka played on the right here, and he played really well, and he looked a lot better than Willian and Pepe have. So there's real challenge for those places now. And look, if we fall into a bit of a situation where Pepe is either a rotation option or a bench option, I think we're going to try to sell him this summer. And obviously we're going to have to take a hit, but we can at least sell him for money. Lille are in financial trouble. Maybe there's a way we can say, look, if we give you a percentage of the transfer fee we get, let's call it quits. Maybe we can come to some kind of arrangement like that. But this is a player, let's not crater his value. Let's use him. He doesn't have to be a bona fide starter every week. Let's keep using him, keep letting him have these moments. But yeah, I think I've just accepted that that's who he is now.
Yeah, you just hit on something really important. And I don't want to go down the road of squad building stuff on a pod about a win over Chelsea where we're limited in what we can talk about. But I think you hit on something that is why there's a philosophy about squad building to begin with, because I felt Pepe was too expensive with the price we paid, but I thought he was a can't miss, right? Just that talented can't miss. I still sort of believe in his talent, but I'm starting to just accept it's a miss for us. Because even in a game all season long, we've had excuses for him. Players don't get close to him, or they don't release him, or they don't find him. But Saka played on the right in this game at times, and he was very good. And, he showed it can be done. Now, you can say, well, Pepe didn't get a chance to play with Smith Rowe this season. Okay, there's always a door open, but here's the point. Willian has been a failure for us, and we can't move him on. You can move Pepe. You're not going to get the 72 you paid for him. You never should have. But the point is, someone will look at it, his stats, which look fine because he's scored some in the Europa League, and they'll look at some of the goals he scored, and they'll see some of his underlying metrics, and they'll look at where he was in France and say there's still a talent there and pay 40 million pounds for him because he's in his prime and he's talented. And you'll lose money on him or 35 million, whatever, but that's because we overpaid. The point is, when you buy a guy at that age, you have an out. We don't have an out with Willian now, right? If the Aubameyang contract goes bad, we don't have an out with him. And that is really just the point, is that I think while I despair at Willian not making it for us, at least the club is not completely ruined by that inability for him to thrive here. Now, would it have been nice if we paid a reasonable fee instead of the Raul-induced $72 million? Sure, but that's life. Clive, before we move on to some final topics here, do you want to weigh in on Pepe at all? Sorry, Clive, I have to go to Paul, who we had a bunch of banter back and forth in the messages that made me forget he had 30 seconds he wanted to add on Pepe. So, Paul, sorry, I got caught up in our haggling banter because Paul said to me, I want 30 seconds on Pepe. And I said, you can have 27 seconds. And then he said 25 seconds. That's just bad haggling. You don't have to go lower. I've already said I'll give you 27. You could have said 28 and a half seconds. But now you get 25 seconds on Pepe.
Half a denarii for my life story or something. Look, all I want to say on Pepe, and I can't prove it at this point, is if we keep playing that style that we played against Chelsea, we'll see a new Pepe. Might take a game or two, but he would have had a fucking field day in the first half. We got a bit of game state here in terms of when he came on in the second half. He wasn't great. He should still have been able to do something. But if Arteta backs off the rigid system and lets these guys in the final third weave their patterns, Pepe will start to light things up. He just needs that. He needs a bit of chaos to play into instead of having 2, 3, 4 guys. And instead he just doesn't follow the plan because he's not really a plan follower. So I'm not sure we're going to play this way all the time, and we're going to keep playing these younger fellows with the legs. But if we did, I think we'd start to see the best of Pepe.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's tough as hell for me to ever want to give up on a player with the immense talent that he appears to have. The way he can strike the ball, the way he can dribble at times. But, I look at the greater consistency, for example, in Saka, just delivering the right ball on time, the right weight, being in the right position. I do wonder if, at least in the Premier League, at least at the highest level, not that we're playing at the highest level, you need more than just the really raw talent. And maybe there's not enough polish there. And to Tim's point, he's a moments player. So I think he will always do some things that wow you, that make you say, surely we have to make this work because he's so talented. But will the moments ever be enough to overcome the rest of it? And I just don't know if that consistency is there. Like you, Paul, I would like to see him get some chances to play in a team that's playing the way we played against Chelsea, whether we can reproduce that. Clive, before we move on to a couple final topics here, do you want to weigh in on the Pepe issue? I don't think it's a big story from the game.
No, it's not really a big story. I think he's a good time player. This team needed Martinelli to come back and lift it. Pepe wasn't going to lift it, right? So, but he'll come into a lifted team and play really well and show his real talent. So, I'm always loath to give up on people. I've done it too often in the past, and there's always something there. You just whether it's good enough for us in the medium to long term. I think we've got to think about. I'm consistent on this. We've got to think about the standards of our players. The real standards of our players. I don't want to do that on the back of a win, but and Pepe's got to think about where he plays. The interesting thing about him and Saka and Smith Rowe, for example, I think the two youngsters were more aware of their starting positions on the pitch. And Paul said Arteta's rigid system. Well, you know what? What do we think happened to this game? Do we think Arteta took the handbrake off, or did the players just play well and move well? And so I would like to see Pepe come inside 20 yards. And then from there, the world is open. The world is open to his talent. If he's on the touchline, his world is not open to him. If Bellerin's firing up, I think Bellerin made one inside run in this game, and that was for the goal, actually, Saka's goal. He's consistently made underlapping runs inside, and our talent's been on the outside. And so for me, there's some systemic things there, some rigidity things there. I think Pepe also needs to take charge of his game and impose his game on the opponent. What that video clip was showing was that in that game state, in that moment, it was a safer ball for Tierney to turn them. It's a much riskier pass when he's that close, to pop it to him closely. The next pass isn't on. It's only a wall pass, and then what? And so by chipping it over the top, we push them back, we turn them, we can squeeze up. And that's just game state management. And that's why he was frustrated. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not an indictment of Pepe or Tierney. It's just game state. Someone coming on, someone who's been under the fire for a little while, and we're trying to get the win. He wants them to turn around. And that sort of intelligence is what I think Pepe lacks a little bit. But talent he doesn't lack. So he needs help with the intelligence side of the game, the positioning side of the game, the body position side of the game. When the ball's at his feet, he's absolutely slick. And he has got it, but he's more of a good time player, shall we say, than somebody who's going to pull us up like Martelli has done over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, so that creates the next challenge, Clive. And by the way, before we move on and wrap this up, I just do want to mention the penalty save from Leno comes at a really important moment. Given where we are in our season, given what's going on with Arteta, given what's going on with just the state of the crisis at Arsenal, which I think it is fair to say it had reached crisis proportions. I'm not going to say we don't win that game if he doesn't save that penalty, but I certainly think that if we're defending a 1-goal lead down the stretch there with the pressure that was on us, it is possible that game ends 3-3, and the devastation that would have wrought, I don't even think it bears considering. So a huge kudos to Leno for coming up big in an absolutely critical moment. So, and again, whatever you think of whether we should have kept Martinez and sold Leno or should have kept Leno and sold Martinez, whatever the case is, Leno is far from one of the problems at Arsenal. And I don't think we give him credit when it's deserved. So kudos to him. Very big moment there. Clive, the sort of final discussion point now is really what happens next. There are 4 games in the league coming up that look like an opportunity for this season to have a twist in the tail, so to speak. We're on 17 points through 15 games. It's not great, but coming off a win against Chelsea and with Brighton, West Brom, Palace, and Newcastle coming up, and then Southampton, which, you could say that's a run of 5 games before Manchester United, but given how things went with Southampton last time, let's just take the 4 games. Let's start there. You wouldn't really fancy a team that just lost to Burnley at home and, was setting records for losses to go on a run now, but that's what's needed. And the win over Chelsea, I think, has revitalized people. And so I think Arteta has a challenge. He needs a lot of points from these next 4, maybe even these next 5. If he does that, I think he has a chance to totally change the mood. Because, if you pick up 12 from 15, if you pick up, 10 from 12, whatever the case may be, you kind of move up the table to the point where now, like, you could get back into the Europa League places. People start to think maybe, it was just the tough fixtures or a little unlucky with the red cards. You can start to spin a story about why this season still has life in it and about why maybe Arteta deserves a second look, a longer time to prove his point. The opposite is also true of this run. Beating Chelsea looks great, but if you can't take points from Brighton, West Brom, Newcastle, and Palace, he's going to find himself basically right back where he was, if not worse. The challenge is, this little mini resurgence, if you want to call it that, is driven by a guy in Martinelli who's just coming back from long-time injury, a guy in Smith Rowe whose career has been blighted by soft tissue injuries. He's got a guy in Thomas Partey who's going to be coming back from injury who he doesn't want to rush back yet, and his star striker Aubameyang coming back from injury, and you're not sure really where to play him. How does he manage this run, balancing the need to get points to rescue the season and change the narrative with the need to not break the young players and somehow rotate, knowing full well that losing any of these games with Willian in the starting lineup, for example, is going to lead to full-scale revolt?
Yeah, it's a tough one for him. I think most important thing he has to do, if he's trying to create a perception outside of the club, which if I'm him, I wouldn't bother. I'll just focus on what's going on inside. But I think I do think he's a fast learner. I do think he learns things really quickly. It wasn't so long ago that we were desperate for drinks break at Arsenal, and why was that? Because every 25 minutes, this guy would just come on, the game would stop, and after a drinks break, the game would change. But problem identification is not an issue for him on the pitch. You could say man management's an issue, given all the issues that have happened. If you're not somebody that likes him, or if you're somebody that thinks he's too inexperienced for the job we have. But I've always felt he's a really good coach. You can really see the game. And he just has to make sure that the players he has are going to reach their potential under him. And he's done that in one phase of Arsenal. He did that in this game. So, and Frank Lampard didn't do that in this game, didn't make the substitution, didn't spot the wide member being run off their feet quickly enough, didn't bring on Giroud, he just didn't do things correctly. And suddenly he's getting pelters. You know, he can't control his team. They're comparing him to Solskjaer with the squad value, etc. Chelsea spent 222 million this summer.
To be fair, Lampard sucks and is terrible, and we should all laugh at him. Just to be clear.
If you're going to beat us in this game, you know, and there are people that don't believe that. And I just believe very strongly that you're as good as your last training session. You know, as simple as that, as a manager, as a coach, you're as good as your last training session, you're as good as your last conversation. And it's all about that. You've got to continue it time after time. Every day you've got to bring in the top performances, and that's what players look for, because they look to see your weaknesses. And if I'm Arteta, I think he's got a little bit more time in his mind to create some more belief again. I think that was wavering. I think some of the gloss has gone off him a little bit, and I really want that to come back, because I think he's a belief-based coach. I think he's a psychological coach. I think he's a one-to-one teaching coach, and he wants to get into people. And I think without that connection and the ability to allow people to paint the picture of themselves to you as the coach, so you can coach them to their potential, I think he loses a big part of who he is. And so I was desperate for the serenity of results to allow him to reconnect to the players he needs to reconnect to. And what was really evident about this game is a group of players that are really, you can see, are 1,000% behind him. And they played completely above themselves and maximised. And I'm just hoping that there's more of those. And of those people that are watching and thinking, crikey, we're not dead. Look at this guy. He's doing something that maybe I should be doing for this team as a senior pro. And I'm hoping they take the message on board and bring that to the next game they play, because they will play. There's a hierarchy in the dressing room. You have senior players, you have mid players, and you have junior players. The senior players are coming back. They are coming back.
Way to ruin a fun podcast.
But when they do, they come back under different circumstances. They come back with less leverage. They come back with all of our eyes keenly on them. And only one thing to do: play well. You better play well, because these 18-year-olds are showing you how to play. And so you have to play. And so the situation has changed. Where we were thinking a few weeks ago, or not even that, 2 weeks ago, they were going to literally kick him out of the club by their non-performing. And we're thinking, crikey, they're not in, but they're longer in charge. They're no longer in charge. And every single Arsenal fan around the world, when those players jog on the pitch next time, they won't be jogging around much longer. They'll have to run. If they don't run, we know the score. We know where the problem is.
Well, and I mean, it's tough, right? Because this is where you and I slightly disagree. Is that like, if the team keeps losing, you can't change the team. So like this was an important stopping of the bleeding. I agree with you. There are some players that are absolutely disgraceful and shouldn't be at Arsenal, but they are at Arsenal. And then the question becomes, how do you live with that situation? So Tim, let me finish with this. You know, I mentioned the 4 fixtures. You can look at it as 5. Let's take it as 4, just the 4, though. Southampton away, I don't think is one that you say, oh, easy, just go get the points. But I think, and not that Brighton is easy, but, you know, Brighton, Palace, Newcastle, and West Brom. And again, I understand West Brom, Big Sam could be challenging, but like you got to take big points there. This is the hard thing about Arsenal. Beating Manchester United at Old Trafford was literally a historic moment. We followed it up losing 3-0 to Villa at home, battered by Leeds in a draw, losing to Wolves, losing to Spurs, losing to Burnley, battered by Southampton in a draw, losing to Everton, losing to City in the Cup. Those were the results that followed the historic win away at Old Trafford. Now there's a fun win at home to Chelsea. This is what makes this sport so tricky, because the high emotionally from that win is all I can really think about, and I'm envisioning us taking 12 points from 12. The reality is he has to confirm what we just saw with results now. So for you, how many points from the next 12 does he have to take? Does the club have to take? You know, a tricky time too to manage the squad. As I mentioned, he's gonna have to rest Martinelli sometime and rest Smith Rowe and bring back Willie, and those players are gonna have to play. How many points does he have to take in those 4 games for you to feel that the season can actually kind of get on track and some of the cloud hanging over the club and the team and the players can be lifted and get a kind of fresh start, especially given that the window's opening and maybe you can bring in reinforcements?
Yeah, sure. I think 10. I mean, they should be aiming for 12. Of course, they should be aiming for 12. That's a redundant thing to say. But I think even in this kind of, funk they've been in, they should be aiming for 12 because they've given up too many points already. And if they're serious about getting in the top 6, even the top 4, then they absolutely have to look at this as a time that they're going to win points. And I think that's the interesting thing about not the fallout from this, but these are actually the type of games that we kind of know Arsenal can do well in when they've got potentially a bit more space and they're not playing a deep block. I don't know if anyone watched West Brom take a point at Anfield yesterday, but that was. I had the sweats.
Blockbuster viewing, was it?
But I had the sweats watching that because we've got West Brom after we've got Brighton. And so
isn't it ironic, Tim, that we're talking about an Arsenal where we're like, yeah, we know they can get the big game points, but can they beat up on the little teams? It's like the opposite of what we used to be.
It has, and the reality is of the Premier League, that's the challenge you face the most. As Arsenal, you face playing teams that are smaller than you, and that's what Arsenal have got coming up. And that, to me, if they can regularly play those games, dominate them, create chances, win them, look. If one of them turns out to be a draw, because, I don't know, we have an unlucky day, we hit the bar, I don't know, the other team gets a goal, a bit like Liverpool's draw with West Brom, right? If that happens, but we win the other 3, you kind of go, okay, that will happen sometimes. That happened to us when we were really good. But really, I think consistently we've got to show aptitude in these games, and that's something that Arteta hasn't proved that he can do yet at any point in his managerial reign. And so that's why this is such an interesting kind of block of fixtures for him. And they're not even teams like Wolves and Leeds, who are not like top 6 sides. They're or Everton. They're in like the rung just below that, where you kind of look at them and you say, well, actually, that's probably where we are in the league. That's probably our kind of status at the moment, quite honestly. But these are
below.
Teams,
This is below.
Yeah. This is relegation battlers. Now, I think Brighton are maybe slightly,
and that's the next game, which is a shame, right? The trickiest of them. Well, maybe West Brom will be, but you know what I mean. It's a shame that it's not like the home game against Newcastle, something where you could just a banker, as they say.
Yeah, and Newcastle have, they've had issues with COVID, and I know Steve Bruce has kind of been questioning whether a lot of his players are still feeling the effects of that at the moment. But yeah, absolutely. And it's a real shame that it's come so quickly as well, because I'd love to see that same team just start the next game. And were there kind of 6-7 days till the next game, I think there's a chance that might happen, but I don't think it really can.
Don't Brighton still try and play a bit of football? I mean, of the ones we're facing, Brighton at home, that there's a reasonable chance that what we did against Chelsea might be kind of useful if Brighton play a little football, whereas West Brom,
yeah, exactly. West Brom is the ultimate beta test for all of this,
well, seeing as how we did against Burnley, it should be fine, you guys. Sorry to wrap up.
I was just going to say, we actually haven't beaten Brighton since they came back up. So that's potentially another another little kind of cycle. I'm not sure how much that stuff matters, and also Brighton played, I think, the day after us, didn't they? I think they've got a day less to prepare for this. So
they do too.
We've at least, we know we've got a squad there, right? Aubameyang's back in full training. He'll be back in the squad. We can share the minutes between him and Martinelli. I'm sure that was the plan for this game. It just turned out we didn't need to risk Aubameyang. Yeah. I'm sure it was let's do 70-20.
He learned from the party mistake earlier,
Yeah, and we can do that the other way. We can either do that again or we can do it the other way around. There is a bit of squad there potentially for him, and we should be fresher than Brighton. So this, to me, big test right now.
10 points for 12. Look, I hate that I'm pushing you guys, but I have literally just completely run out of time here as I'm trying to solo parent while my wife works, while our daycare is closed. So I appreciate everyone for putting up with me trying to usher the pod out, which we have to do now. I guess it's the point, right? From the United game, we were so high. We then were set so low. I mean, the question now, the headline will be written, is this fresh start or false dawn? And Tim, you said 10 points from 12. I think 10 from 12 would be fantastic. And I think it would set us on our way to be able to turn the season around. And, with the January window, maybe then some things could be done to do that. And that's a discussion for another day. And there's a lot more podcasts coming. So I will end this here so that I can go be a parent, though it pains me to do so. Paul's on Twitter, Pause My Pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woohoo!
Clive's on Twitter, Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Tim's on Twitter, Roberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I will say, analysis is fun. Winning is more fun. Winning rules. Beating Chelsea rules. And I loved every second of it. I hope you did too. We do love you. We hope you're having a great holiday season and a new year coming up, but we will still talk to you sooner than that. So we love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. Brighton, no.